I'm also going to get the Teams chat up in the background just so I can see the chat as well as playing Minecraft, because I think that's important. That's the wrong Minecraft. That's the wrong Minecraft. That's the wrong Minecraft. That's the wrong thing. Wow, I've got so much open. Let me see. Here we are, and then I'll put Minecraft over the top of this. Here we are. Nicole joining from the USA. Well, you're in Florida, right enough. So what does that make it for you? 10 o'clock in the morning, something like that? 10 o'clock, and Atlanta as well. Cheryl. So good morning to you, and thank you for coming in. So I was having a conversation the other day. You know, I worked for Microsoft, and for many, many years didn't, but just this year, I started working for Microsoft, and I had a very honest conversation with a group in Microsoft about one of the truths that we as adults actually find it very difficult to sometimes see and come to terms with, which is that children don't care whether we're using Teams or Zoom. Children don't care whether we're asking them to take notes on paper or whether we're asking them to use a OneNote page. They don't care whether we set their assignments using a forms or assess them using a forms or a Sway or any of those other products. They literally don't care. They'll use what they're told to use, because see, back home they're using other things. They're using TikTok and Snapchat and Discord. Most of the gamers that I know, most of the Minecraft players that I know are sitting on Discord, not Teams. And so the truth about that conversation, the truth behind that conversation is that what we need to be better at doing, and what I've long advocated for, is meeting children where they are. If we want them to genuinely have an interest in French or German or art and art history and P.A. Mondrian, for example, or John Constable, or the science of the human body, at an age where they haven't chosen to be interested in that yet. They haven't got to a stage where they're like, you know what I want to do when I leave school? I want to go and do science. And so they choose to go and do science, or they choose to go and do art. At an age, certainly in primary and secondary school, where they're still just making their way through what we're telling them to think about, and trying to do that as in their own way and express their own little minds, we have to meet they are. And for a lot of people, that technology is not one that we use. For a lot of adults, these are technologies that we don't use. And Minecraft is that happy ground. Minecraft is that middle ground where we are going to meet children where they are. It's not the Fortnite, which I don't want them to use, or the Call of Duty or the Grand Theft Auto. It's not those games. But it's also not Teams and OneNote and forms that the kids don't really care for. It's that happy middle ground medium where we can all genuinely get together and meet and do effective education. And so when I'm using Minecraft and I'm advocating for Minecraft and doing presentations like this, I want you all to keep in mind, Afonso, it's great to see you. Finally, Afonso was in one of my meetings yesterday and I couldn't present. So Afonso, it's so good to see you've joined me again on this. And so for this masterclass that I'm doing, it's really about helping you to think about why this platform. Munira, you will be able to find this video as part of the queue. I'm not exactly sure where, but they will all be released as part of the queue final piece, because I'm recording it and then it gets put on stream, and then I think it gets downloaded and put on either YouTube or something like that. So keep an eye out on the queue website for that. And so let me make a start by showing you, last week when we did our masterclass, we spoke about the very basics of playing Minecraft, the ability to jump and fly and build things really basically. But what I want to talk about this time is the importance of merging the right environment with the right structures. And to do that, I want to show you what I mean by that. So for example, I'm going to take this small South Africa world that I am making at the moment. And I think, if I'm right in saying, it's this one. So keeping in mind that what we need to do is we need to think about when we're developing lessons, how does Minecraft apply to what it is that we're trying to teach? So this is an old version, but that's okay. This is a slightly older version of this world. But what we've done is we've created, in terms of the environment, so the first thing, as I mentioned last week, and the catch up for anyone who was there, and also a recap for anyone who wasn't, we talked about the 3 ingredients of using Minecraft as teachers to create relevant, meaningful, curriculum-linked, pedagogically sound lessons. Not just the kind of stuff that's out there where people go, oh, I did a Minecraft thing and it was quite cool, you know, my kids loved it and it was fine. It's like, no, this really made a difference. This is the stuff that genuinely made a difference. It raised attainment, and it brought more girls to the table for STEM, for example, which is some of the things that we've seen happen with Minecraft. My entire school was able to do a project on conservation and really get involved. Thanks for answering that, Nicola. I'm kind of seeing those questions coming in and I'm kind of like, I'm gonna have to stop and type in a second, but that's great. Thanks so much for doing that. And so what we've got here is, what we've done is the 3 main ingredients are environment, number 1. Number 2, structures and mechanics, the things that we can build into that world. And then number 3, and most importantly, although none of them work without the other 2 or 3, is narrative. So environment, structures, mechanics, narrative. Tell a story. Use Minecraft to tell the stories that you want your children to experience. And so in this one, we've talked about the youth. You'll see there it says youth problem-based learning. And then what we've done is, as an environment, we've created a very specific environment. So you'll see there that this is not a naturally occurring Minecraft environment. This is a copy of the South African landscape. So we've got the right South African trees. These trees don't exist in Minecraft, we created them. This is basically wheat that's growing, but what we've done is we've covered the entire map in it. And so from a distance, it looks like that sort of African savanna grass. Over here, we've got some like an African ranger's base and some African mountains. Again, not naturally occurring, but we created those using some filters. We've got a mix of waters there, like an African delta, and so on. Then what we've done is we've created, and that was just the environment. So once we gave the kids this environment, the first thing they all said was, when we first started showcasing this one in South Africa, we're like, oh, this is just like Kruger Park. This is just like, they knew what it felt like. So immediately they were invested. And you can see there that we've put, basically it's a huge round island, and we've put fake clouds in the glass at the side, so the kids are just like, oh, there's only a set space for me, you know, place for me to play and space for me to go. But then what we did was, that's not enough. So then what we did was we created structures and mechanics. Now those structures are things like a cinema or some buildings. This is basically a mix of what would be Cape Town, Pretoria, or Johannesburg. Let's create a fake city that has a bank, and it has a mail system, and it has a food supermarket, and it has some apartment buildings for homes, maybe a gas station. We just put a city in, just general. But what we did was we dotted it with buildings that matter. So this one here with the colours on it, this is the South African Constitutional Court building, which actually looks remarkably like that. It's roughly, if you're standing at the main entrance, it's roughly this size, and it has these gorgeous, this is actually words, but it's all in green and red and so on, and purple. And then if you head over here, it has this weird speckled side, which we just used bark to look like. This is just birch bark, but it actually looks like that in real life, the Constitutional Court. And then over here where the orange roofed building is the early prison that Nelson Mandela was held in. It's a famous place, you can now go there and visit, but this is what it looks like, and you would just walk around, and Nelson Mandela was held inside this building. So these are the little buildings, these are little things that make it kind of like the kids going, oh, I know where that is. There's also, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a huge tall building which has, I think it's now Vodafone, but it used to have the Coca-Cola symbol on top and so on. And so we created this city within this environment. And again, the kids saw it and they were like, oh, it's Johannesburg. No, it's not. It's Cape Town. No, it's not. It's Pretoria, and they had this debate. Over here we have what's called an informal settlement or a township, the place where a lot of the native Africans live, and they don't live in the cities. They can't afford to live in the cities, so they live in these informal settlements, and they're vast. I mean, I worked in one called Kagiso when I was in South Africa, and it's vast, nothing like what we have here. And I'm still fixing this up a bit, but they live in these areas that are, if I just jump down to here, they live in these areas that are just, they live in shacks. They live in little spaces like this. They use, I saw one guy he'd been collecting Heinz beans tin wrappers for the tins, and then he had wallpapered his whole wall with Heinz beans tins, the branding for Heinz beans, which was fascinating. For those who aren't familiar, although I'm sure most people are, Heinz is a very famous brand of baked bean, certainly here in the UK, and very simple food to eat, to get access to and eat. And then he'd used the tin wrappers as wallpaper, and out in places like that, they don't necessarily have access to schools or hospitals and so on, and so we're able to model this, and the kids know this. The kids are like, oh, it's a township, or it's an informal settlement. And then over here, though this is actually much bigger than the final version, we have a mine, because in South Africa mining is very important, and so we created a makeshift mine, etc. And then what we also did in terms of functions, because that's just the structures, but if we talk about functions and mechanics, we then created, I get a sheep and I place a sheep down, we get a sheep. That's the wrong area, that's the wrong one. Let me show you a different variation on that map. I'm going to have to find you a different one, because that one is clearly one that I haven't finished working on yet. Come on. Here we go. We'll do this one. Here we are. And then in here, if I take a sheep and I put a sheep down, we don't get a sheep, we get an elephant. So what we've then tried to do is create the creatures, and you can do this with third-party software. Again, as teachers watching this, you're probably thinking, how on earth would I do that? There's lots and lots of ways you can do that, and lots of ways online you can find out about that. I'm also happy through my Play Matters Twitch channel to do more of helping you to work out what this looks like. There's a little warthog. We also have rhino, and we have giraffe, and we have lions, and we have buffalo. And so this is what makes it immersive. This is what makes it believable for kids. So suddenly kids are like, oh, I'm in Africa. Like, I'm sitting in a French school in Paris, but I'm actually in Africa. And what the teacher is asking me to do is study poaching using, let's look at this little guy down here. So here we have an NPC chap called Wisdom, who's a real ranger. We believe it's better to catch a poacher with a dog than hurt them with a weapon. Well, when you listen to them, everyone has a story, a reason for getting involved in this crime. This way we save human and animal lives and get vital information from poachers about the chain of illegal activity. It is my honour to protect rhino for humanity. This is a project we did a while ago where we worked with an organisation, a not-for-profit organisation, to create a story, narratives around conservation with real rangers doing their job. And so you can see what we've created. I mean, here's an example of it without a city. And so those three ingredients are really important. So if you're sitting at home just now listening to me and you're thinking, what am I going to get out of this? The first is the three ingredients. Remember, what kind of environment do I need? And I'm going to take you back and give you an example of what that might look like from the very beginning. If I click on play and then go to create new, actually, let's just go to, view library. Let's go view library and then go to biomes and worlds down here in the bottom left. Then click on biomes. You'll see here that we get a Badlands biome, maybe the, what do you call it, the Grand Canyon style, maybe Mexico, California, Southern California. Desert biome If we want to start studying deserts, and maybe the thing that we're going to be doing is looking at Saudi Arabia as a country, or maybe parts of Egypt, we're going to start with the right environment. Very, very important. There's no point in having a forest biome and asking the kids to think about Egypt. We have forest biomes, jungle biomes. We want to do something on forest fires, or we want to do something on conservation of the Borneo jungle, or looking at how forests form and so on. Why not take the jungle biome or the ice plains biome if you're doing the Arctic and climate change, for example? What about a warm ocean biome? If you want to do, let's just click on that and go create world. If we're going to do a warm ocean biome, think about a warm ocean environment, maybe with some islands and certainly some corals. So here's an example of a nice island, series of islands. And if we go in the water, you can see we've got tropical fish. We have corals. We can't talk about the Great Barrier Reef in Minecraft if we haven't got an example of it. You wouldn't talk about the Great Barrier Reef if you didn't have a book or a video or some sort of resource that related to it. And so with Minecraft, it's no different. This is just ready-made for you. So picking the right environment is key. The second thing is then making sure that you have the right type of structure. Now, here's an example, just pulling straight from here. What we might want to do in here is have a look for a shipwreck. So there's no shipwrecks immediately around. So what we might do as a teacher is build one. We might just literally say, I tell you what, by next Monday, my kids are going to be looking at shipwrecks. So I'm going to have them start on that little island over there. And then down here, I am going to start by building a shipwreck. And I would just take some wood and then clear away just by using those build that I showed you last time. There we go. So that's the bottom of the ship. Then we're going to just build another bit along here. And then what we can do is we can start to build a piece. Now, quite often teachers will say, yeah, but that's, I mean, how long is that going to take me? And I say to them, well, how long would you normally spend preparing a lesson? Like realistically, how long would you normally spend preparing a lesson? You might spend, if it's a new unit and you know that your kids are going to get 3 weeks out of this doing shipwrecks in the Caribbean, for example, or looking at shipwrecks around the world, you know that you might get 3 weeks of learning out of this. So if you have to put in 2 hours to build a ship, that's not a lot to ask. The rest's been done for you. The ocean's been done for you. The fish have been done for you. The weather conditions have been done. The biome has been done, etc. And so all you really need to do is invest the time in building what looks roughly like a shipwreck. Or alternatively, and I keep coming back to this, ask your kids. Just say to your kids, you couldn't build me a shipwreck, could you? Yeah, what kind do you want? Well, I want one that looks as if it sunk in the 1800s somewhere in the Caribbean. Great, we'll do that for you. And they'll go off and do it. And then what you could have left a hole in it. No wonder it sunk, eh? There we go. So here we can start to build a shipwreck, and we might build the sails and we might hide some treasure. Give yourself a couple of hours and a bit practice with Minecraft, and suddenly you have this mysterious shipwreck down here. It not even be an old one. And of course it's nighttime already. Look at that. And so time set 1. And so that's the structures. Let me give you another few examples of how these structures might work. This is what I spend most of my days doing is, you know, I wake up in the morning and I think, what is it I'm trying to teach? I'm trying to teach this. So here's an example. Let me take Washington State History Museum, Washington State Stories. So we want to start teaching what it was like for Lewis and Clark to go across America. And so as you can see here, we've made this giant bear, okay, this huge bear that stands on this landscape with grass and flowers and a big log and so on. But actually down here is a little town or village, which has no bearing on the bear. And over there is a British flag, which has no bearing on the bear. And over the back of the bear, we're going to show you another thing. Now, this is where I'm going. But to truly have children invested in this world, and this is one of, children love this world. This is called our Washington State, Washington State history map. Old Joseph. So we've got a character in here who says, welcome, young learners. I am Old Joseph from the Nez Perce tribe. So we're already building that third crucial piece of the ingredients, which is narrative. I am Old Joseph from the Nez Perce tribe. I have many years of wisdom to share with you, and I have lived in this area for a very long time. And then what you do is you follow this path that he tells you to go on. In 1607, the first permanent settlement, English settlement, was built in the US. And as we go up the hill again, we find that in 1776, the Declaration of Independence was written. Somewhere between this sign and this sign was a whole lot of history, and we might have missed it. I mean, old Joseph tells us each season has shown me how these people meet challenges throughout time, and I listen quietly to the different points of view. And he's kind of talking about the people aspect, whereas the landscape is doing the rest of it. And what we're really doing as we move our way up to old Joseph again in 1787 Constitutional Convention, and then we have Jefferson becomes the third president. So we've missed the first and second president. What happened there? But this is great, because this is where we say to our kids, hang on, the narrative's missing a few pieces. Go build them for me. And the kids will build that. What was it like to have the first president inaugurated in the United States? And then when we get here, we have a couple of NPCs, a couple of non-player characters, and we don't know who they are yet until old Joseph says to us, some of the first travellers to my forest from a land far away were two men called Lewis and Clark. And what we can do is we can help. He says, help me tell their story by creating film sets that capture important scenes from their journey. So we'll head off to the film studios. And before I head off there, you'll notice that what we've been doing is we've been following the narrative up the bear's back. So we started on his neck and we go up his back until we meet the first of our stories. Then we continue till we meet the second of his stories. Then we continue until we meet the third of his stories, which is this island here, which is this island over here. And so what we're doing is we're using environment, structure, and narrative to bring our children together in an excitement for the topic, to have them go, oh, what happened next? And I say, well, you need to find out. You need to go to the film studios and find out the what if, the why, the how. How did you do that, sir? Well, let's head off to the film studios. And we click the film studios, and here's all just suddenly we're at the back of the bear. There's the bear now, and we've come down to the film studios where old Joseph says, welcome to Clatsop Studios. Here you will design a movie, script, storyboard, and film. So there's your curriculum. Let's have them script it first. Let's have them storyboard it up, and then let's have them perhaps even make a film to represent the major events in Lewis and Clark's epic journey west. So they're also studying history while they're doing all of that. And so what we then do is you'll see that we've created a series. These are pre-finished, but I'll show you ones that aren't, of these old 1920s or even 1800 late 1800 film studios, where they were just a piece of board with a set. That's all they are. And then the set at the front. And the children then have to decorate the set. These start off blank, and the children have to set it up. And then they have to say, well, this is when Lewis first met Jefferson. And Jefferson says, hey, how about you go traveling and I'll pay you to do it? I'm sure it was a bit more complex than that. And Lewis is like, hi, fine, show me the money. And then this is Lewis in this is like a section of his house where Lewis is writing to Clark to say, you fancy coming with me? And we can put in the NPCs. I'm going to show you NPCs later in this stream and why they're there and how they work, because it's all part of the functions. Redstone as well. We also have historians. Today's question is, what important items did the explorers pack with them? Click the button below to learn more, so they can go and learn more. And when they click on that, we're going to click and it's going to go to here. To equip an expedition. Once he was named by President Thomas Jefferson to head the Corps of Discovery, Meriwether Lewis, I didn't realize that was his name, Meriwether Lewis began preparations for the long trip ahead. But what did he need? So he needed 150 yards of cloth to be oiled and sewn into tents and sheets. He needed pliers, chisels, 30 steels for striking to make fire, right? Hatchets, whetstones, iron corn mill. They carried all this with them. Mosquito curtains, naturally. 12 dozen pocket mirrors. 4,600 sewing needles. Who even thought of that? Them, evidently, not me. And so what we're then able to do is we're then able to have the children build these. This is the boat that they built with bison in the water for some reason. This was the first fort that they stopped at to have the winter, to see the winter. This was where they stopped to catch, get this. A lot of people don't realize this, but they actually took 2 days out of their diary to catch prairie dogs because they were so fascinated with them. They wanted to send prairie dogs back. There we go. Boing, they're going to bounce out the holes. And then the eagle's going to come down and get one of them. Oops, bad eagle. And again, these are all mechanics that children are like, oh, sir, you've actually got prairie dogs. How did you get the eagles to do that, etc. And then so on. So here's the 10. They found a waterfall. They then picked up Sacagawea and said, you're coming with us. You know your stuff. Super interesting piece of history. They then saw the coast in Washington State. They then saw the last winter before they headed home, and then they went home and were praised and whatnot. Although I didn't realise that I think it was Lewis went on to commit suicide shortly afterwards. Piece of history I learned while doing this. And here's the empty ones. We give the kids the empty film studios. So again, this is not difficult. All you would need to do as a teacher is create these. I mean, we do these for you if you were interested in these particular lessons. But for you, thinking about how you create them yourself is you're just thinking, what's the environment? What are the structures and mechanics that I'm going to need to make my children believe in this? And then what's the narrative? What is it I want my children to do? And then as you can see, a world like this takes shape. And the great thing about this is the sort of stuff that you share with every other teacher who's doing Lewis and Clark, or you share with every other teacher who's doing Washington State history, or even just generic American history, or you share this with year after year, student after student, group after student group every year. So once you've made it, you just repeat it. And to do that, that's real easy. If I just take you back to the beginning and show you how easy it is to share this stuff, press play, My Worlds, and then where it says Washington State Social Studies, you click Settings, and you go all the way down to the bottom and you click Copy World. Pauses on 40% for some reason, but finishes. There we are. And now we have copy of Washington State Social Studies. And we can go in and we can rename that. So I'm going to go Settings, and I'm just going to rename that, and I'm just going to say Washington Social Year 3 2021. That's done. My Washington State Social Studies work is ready for Year 3 2021. I can now just stick that somewhere on a memory drive or stick it somewhere on a OneDrive or whatever, and I'm ready next year. I know that when it comes to February of next year, I'm ready to roll that out. And so that's a really nice piece. Let me take you through some other ways in which we've been able to create the right environments for the right lessons. So this one, for example, this is a slightly different one. We had a teacher say to us a while ago, I've got this great project. My kids are setting up a band, and she was a music teacher, and she said, my kids are setting up a band, and she said, but I really want to find a way of bringing Minecraft in. And so we did. There was a whole host of different systems for this, one of which was using the importance of using PowerPoint, Word, and Excel to set up a band. But if I just put in there, actually we'll do that, that's fine. So what you can see is we've created this nice big central area with drums and keyboards and a cello. Is that a cello? That's a cello. And the stage piece with the music themes and stuff like that. And then over here is the Excel area where the kids can visit and they have to learn and work with Excel. Over here is the PowerPoint area. And over here is the Word area. Now, everything outside of this initial music area, this circled stage area, everything else the children did. We didn't do anything else other than create what looked roughly like a keyboard or drums and so on. When they cross the bridges, so they're going to cross these music bridges, you then have to go in and start to create, well, what does it take to make my band travel around the world? I have a budget. What does a stage cost? What do speakers cost? What about ticket sales? What revenue will I get if I sell 20,000 tickets at £5,000 per, whatever, per group set? What if the tickets are £70 per person and we want 10,000 people to fill up the arena? What about t-shirts or posters or music discs, or how much does lighting and rigging cost? And then they start to do this with a spreadsheet. What about if we were to take a bus or fly? Like, one's going to be more expensive, but it's going to be way more effective. And we can, because what if our tour is only in America? What if we're only touring our state? But what if we're actually touring the world? So how does that then compare? And then where in the world would we go? So how much would it cost for us to go to northern Spain or Scotland? Just saying. Or Germany. What if we were to go over to, where do we think that is? Russia, India, and so on. What if we were to tour in Australia, East and West Coast and New Zealand? That's going to take us a lot of money. And so suddenly the kids are going on to the online and they're doing very real studies on money and keeping a spreadsheet of that budget. And then very often they would come to us and they'd say, we've run out of money. We've only done 3 shows and we've run out of money. Okay. So again, we set up the environment, we developed the narrative, and then we got them to do the structures and mechanics. They did the rest. They built the bus, they built the plane, they built the planet, and so on. If we head over here, we get them to dissect their favorite song lyrics. 99 Red Balloons, Yellow Submarine, Another Brick in the Wall, Spiders from Mars, David Bowie, Birdhouse in Your Soul by They Might Be Giants, Throwing Stones, Empathy Test, and so on and so on. And what they can do is, using jukeboxes down here, they can actually play music. So they can use these jukeboxes with notes and they can try and get We All Live in a Yellow Submarine to play and do that. And kids are very clever with stuff like that. I admit I'm not very good at that. And so that was their word. That was all about writing their own song lyrics and using Word to create their own songs. And then finally, PowerPoint, where we got them to create their own music posters. Pink Floyd, David Bowie, Röyksopp, whoever they like, whoever you like, the Killers, just make your own poster. And they're able to do that from poster art. And then not only for their own, their favorite artists, but their own artists. So another example of the environment and the we created the narrative, the kids did the rest. So Minecraft is one of those subjects, one of those tools that you can use to learn almost anything or teach almost anything. So let me show you some of the mechanics and features. Let's go for a new world, and we're just going to go for a flat world, and we're just going to call this mechanics and functions. This is really important. Creative, peaceful, because we don't need any monsters. I'm going to make it a flat world because I'm just going to show you a bunch of things on a flat world. I'm then going to go for show coordinates just in case, always day because I don't want it to rain, and perfect weather. That will do. Right, let's check this out. Anybody got any questions while you're listening and watching? Please just fire them into the chat. So here we go. We're on a flat world. Just recapping on what we talked about last week. We're just going to move to our left, move to our right using A and D. We're going to move forward with W, back with S. We're going to jump with our spacebar, and we're going to destroy or build with left click, right click, left click, right click, left click, right click. All right. And then we can also fly by double tapping space and then holding space to go higher and higher and higher. And you can see the chunks, just you can see further and further. There we are. All right. So when we land on the ground, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a few things. I'm going to get an NPC, a camera, portfolio. These are all functions that allow you to create a richer experience for your kids. We're going to take a, let's take a slate. Poster, and a board. That'll do for the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place an NPC down. Oops, I need to be in WB mode, which is world builder mode. I'm going to place this NPC down. And NPC stands for non-player character, and it allows you to create a being that doesn't do anything and doesn't go anywhere in terms of like this chicken that's wandering around the place. It's basically an information center, and we can change the skin of that avatar so we can make it look like a hazmat suit, or we can make it look like a doctor, and we can also make it look like any woman or man or anything like that. So there we go. and we're just going to call this there we go, Stephen. And we're going to, and then we've got a number of choices. We can edit the dialogue, which is to say, hi, my name is Stephen, and I am your guide to this world. And then question 1. Instruction 5. Hint 4 or 2, etc. So we can add anything we want in there. We can question, we can give instructions, we can give hints and tips to their learning. We can do anything we want. Now this is what it looks like when the students see it. Student walks up and says, oh, here's a person. And when we click on that, this is what we'll see. None of the other fancy stuff. Hi, my name is Stephen, and I am your guide to this world. Question 1, instruction 5, hint 2. What we can also do is down here on the right-hand side, you can see that we have the immersive reader, and that will open up the immersive reader. And we can now, if you're not familiar with the immersive reader, it's a phenomenal tool that allows you to play around with the language that that you're using, the size of the text. We can increase the spacing or decrease the spacing. We can change the font. We can change the color for students that find it more difficult or less difficult to read on one or the other style. We can also go in and just highlight the nouns: name, Stephen, guide, world, question, instructions, and hint. We can change the color that we want those to be in. We can even show the labels so we know that these are all nouns, because we've also got verbs on as well, and verbs are yellow, for example, so we can see where the nouns and the verbs are. We can also break it down into syllables, which I love. And then what else can we do? Oh yeah, we can read it. So I'm gonna check this. Can you guys hear that? Maybe it's something I haven't done in this. Where are we? Show meeting notes in it, full background effects. No, I think it's in live that actually causes a problem. Let me know if you can't hear that, speaking back to you, because I can't work out if I need to do something separate to do that. Right. And then we are going to go to, you can't hear it talking back. I wonder why that is. Usually there's a little thing that says, I don't know where it is. There's normally a little button when you go live that says use background sound, but it's not on here. Sharing. Okay, let me try that again. I'm going to stop sharing then, and then I'm going to go screen 1 up here. That's, oh, it's this button up here. Oh, and I can pin that as well. Look, pin the toolbar. Thanks very much. But there just isn't. Give control. No. Stop sharing system audio. Ah, right. Okay. Right. So now I'm sharing system audio. So let's see if we can hear this time. If I press play.
Hi, my name is Stephen, and I am your guide to this world. Question 1. Instruction 5. Hint 2.
Let me know if that changed and you can hear that now. Yay! Thanks very much for going through that with me. Good. So we can do that, and we can. You can even change the language. If we go into here, we can go to Afrikaans, and then we can change by document, and then we can play that back as well. Oh, read aloud is not currently available for these languages. That's strange because it did do Afrikaans for me last time. I was allowed Afrikaans last week. Anyway, let's try a different language then. Let's find one we can. Catalan. By document.
Hola, el meu nom és Stefan i jo sóc la seva guia d'aquest món. Pregunta 1. Instrucció 5. In 2.
In 2. There we go. So we can teach languages through that. So that's a fantastic little thing. We can always come straight back out of that, and that is our little that's our little NPC. What we can also do is we can use the camera. And we, oh, actually, sorry, one more thing with the NPC. Let me just show you this. If I just go back into WB, we can go down to advanced settings and we can add a URL. www.ibetnoone.this URL.com. There we go. I'm not going to click on that just in case, but we can click learn more, or we can name that button anything, and then we can just go back. And this is what the children will see this time. WB, when they click in there, they'll see the instruction or the intro or whatever, and then they'll have this button at the bottom that takes them to the website that you presented. And if you think about that, that doesn't have to be a standard website. That can be a OneDrive folder, which takes them to the next world. So it could be, you know, thanks for visiting this wonderful world. In our next story, Alice in Wonderland, we're going to discover the world that Alice tumbled into through a rabbit hole. Click below to find this world, and you click below, takes you to OneDrive, double click on the file, it opens up in Minecraft, and you're ready. And so we can start to take our students through different pathways of learning, if you like, just by using that option. But we also have a camera. And the camera is a little box that we carry with us, and we just point and click. A pig, Stephen, and a horse. Let's get a nice close-up of this chicken. Hey, little guy. Yeah, pose for the camera. And we'll get a side-on chicken. Nice one. Okay, and then what we can do is if we go into our, well, actually the other thing we can do is we can just put it down on the ground, right click on it, and you'll see the smoke coming out, and then we can pose. Hey, me and Stephen. And then what we can do is we can go to our portfolio, and when we right click on our portfolio, we have these pictures available to us as well, for captioning first of all, so we can say Stephen look at that, how meta. And then we can also go for something like cold chicken, right? And if we want to get rid of any of those, if we think that one was okay, this one wasn't so good, I'm just going to delete that one and the pig one, that's fine. And that gives us a portfolio. Now, what can we do with the portfolio? I'm going to get one more thing. I'm going to get what we call the book and quill. And the book and quill is a fantastic little toy that allows us to right click and then fill out. This is a book with 50 pages. Our students can fill out the entire book. And then what we can do is we click on this little pencil here and click on this little photograph. We can add our photographs in there. Stephen meets. Right, Cheryl, it's amazing. In fact, let me give you an example of where we've used it. I'm going to come out of this world before I come back and show you the other stuff, but it's fantastic. What you can also do is you can use this over and over again. So it doesn't really matter how many times you walk away and do something else with it. So I'll go and get a different picture now. This is my horse. Whoops, I got on that horse. I meant to take a picture of it. Here we go. So I've got a picture of it. Now, what I can do is go into my portfolio. There's my new horse. What I can now do is go into my book and quill, and I can, in my next page, I own a horse who is the best behaved horse in the world. And then we can add a picture of the horse. So we can just continue and continue and continue, and we never ever, until we run out, until we get to 50 pages, and then we start again, unless we click on the sign button at the bottom, and then we sign it. My Diary by Stephen R. And it will always tell you as the teacher which student filled it in, because they'll be logged in with their first and second name or their identity through their Office 365. And it's when I click sign and close, it says, note, when you sign the book, it will no longer be editable. So when you sign it, you'll see that it now becomes this sparkly, purpley, ethereal thing, which we can then walk over to a teacher and we can press the Q key and we can give somebody that book. Or if we pick it up again, we could put it in a chest. So we would just put a chest down. I'm going to show you how I do this with my kids. We put my, and you'll see there it's called My Diary by Stephen R. And then let's just imagine I'm a new person. I've just signed in as a new, I am the teacher, and I've signed in and I go over to this chest and you'll see there's a book in it. And when I take the book out and I right click on it, it's not editable, but I can go through it and I can see my horse and so on. But when I click export, it will export as a PDF. And it, you know, My Diary by Stephen R. And when I click save, that has now saved as a PDF version, which you can strip the images out of, you can embed into your OneNotes or anything like that, just whatever you want to do with it. It's a standard PDF that it exports as, which is lovely. So evidence of learning, when the kids, these are the functions that I was talking about, is it's all very well having a really nice environment, but what do I want my children to do? These are the things. The other thing you can do is, and I'll show you the book and quill examples in a second, but if I place a slate, and then beside it, I'm going to put a poster, and then beside this one, there we are. So a slate, a poster, and a board. And the great thing about this is you can right click and you can say this is a slate. But what I like to do is just take it down to the middle-ish and then center it. And it makes it nice and centered. This is a poster. And again, we're just going to take it down. We're going to space it across. And now it's in the middle. You don't have to, of course. And then over here, we can put this is a board and can be used to contain a lot of text. This, and then we can just, and you can see just how much instructional text you can get in there. Sorry about the noise, but you can do that. New paragraph, most important. And then when you come away, this is what it looks like. And actually, if I do time set nighttime, you'll see that it's actually still remarkably visible, compared to a sign, which is the other type, which is not. The other thing I like to do for these is if I get myself some glowstone, I like to just put some glowstone at the bottom, or alternatively, frame them in glowstone, which means they can always be seen even in the night. They can be seen from miles away, so the kids know where to go. If they're doing a night map, for example, you can always see where to take them. So this is fantastic. The book and quill is fantastic. Let me show you an example of two worlds where we've used the book and quill most effectively, which then comes to narrative. And this is my my third part, third ingredient. In next week's next week's masterclass, we're going to be doing code, specifically code. And so I want to get all of the other stuff like redstone and stuff out the way during this one, and we've got 10 minutes left, so let me show you some stuff, although I'm happy to go slightly over. Oh no, I can't, I have another meeting. Let's have a look. Now what world am I looking for? I've got so many worlds. Not the Vikings, not Pompeii. World War I, there we are. So if I pop into the World War I world, this is basically a giant toy box within which it's a giant briefcase, within which is some memorabilia, but most importantly, a scene from the World War I trenches. And it's inside this, again, think about this from the ingredient structure that I've given you, the ingredients scaffold that I've given you. We've got we've got the environment, which is set inside a box, and then it's just muddy fields. That's just a plain and simple environment. We then got the structures that we wanted, which is things like the medals on the side, the planes, the bunkers, that kind of stuff. And then the third is we've got the narrative, and the narrative is set in things like, down here we've got this little NPC guy, Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron. And when we click on him, we can see that we've created a really nice way of looking at that world. So we can explore aviation, lead to a OneNotes page. We can learn some more with another website and so on. But what we can also do is one of the instructions in this book is to give, level, is to give children a book and quill. Then have them write letters. Dear Mother, it is cold here in the trenches of the Somme. We lost 131 good men yesterday in one artillery strike, etc., etc. I'm sure horrific, horrible things happened of that kind. And we can put that sort of stuff in, and then we can actually put in our little photographs, if you remember. Now I don't have any because I haven't taken any, but we could have them be like a military photographer trying to get pictures of no man's land. And they can go out and they can try and capture those pictures. So that's one of the ways we can do it. The other way we can do it is to show facts and figures about someone. So if I go into our art world, which is here we are. We have a world which is all about art history and looking at P.A. Mondrian and Michelangelo and so on. So in here we have an art gallery with very real paintings from it looks like a proper party. What is going on here? Music, wine, people carrying things. I don't know what that is, but anyway. But if we head over to, it must be this way, if we head into here, we can see Michelangelo. And when we right click on Michelangelo, he talks to us. Ciao, I am Michelangelo, an Italian artist who lived during the Renaissance. I was a sculptor, painter, poet, and architect. And what we can do is if we click refresh book and then we check inside this chest, you'll see that there's a book called Michelangelo. And when we get the book out and we go read it, it has a picture of the Sistine Chapel. I created many pieces of art, paintings and sculptures for Pope Julius II. One of my most famous works is the ceiling in the Sistine Chapel. And then we can go and we can go page 2 and page 3 and page 5, 7, 9. And you can see there that we've actually created this lovely story of Michelangelo's life with surrounding pictures of the Sistine Chapel made in Minecraft. And so things like this are not that, obviously, I know you're probably looking at this thinking, how would I begin to get those pictures in there? Don't worry about that. You don't need to do that. You just need to be able to tell, this is the environment that I need. These are the structures that I need to build. And it might be you that builds them. It might be your kids that build them. And this is the narrative. And trust me, if you've got those 3 things and you've planned it out and thought it out, run it by me, get in touch with me, follow me on Twitter, ask me if this looks like a reasonable lesson, and I will run it by with you. But if you can say those 3 things are in it, trust me, your kids are going to love it. Your kids are going to come out the other side and you're going to do a test in 3 months' time, and you're going to say, okay, time for your test. Name 3 different types of this, or tell me what the human heart, name the 4 different sections of the human heart, or whatever. And trust me, your kids are going to reference that Minecraft world. They're going to go, oh, I remember we built this and we had to go through the human heart. I remember that because we were like blood cells. And there's your narrative. You're a blood cell getting passed through the human heart, and you have to know where you are at any given time in the human heart. Go, so that they build the human heart, and they have to be able to name as they pass through it as if they were blood cells. Speaking of blood cells, let me now show you, before we finish up for today, how redstone can help you achieve stuff like that. So redstone is, and I'll go back to my functions world, redstone is like electrical circuitry. It's really, really important that you learn the basics of redstone. So I'm just going to go time set 6000 over here. Now redstone, I've done it, / clear. There we are. Cleared my inventory. All right. Redstone is like electrical circuitry, and it helps you to connect an input with an output. I talk about redstone as the process. So redstone, process, output. Sorry, input, process, output. Input, redstone, output. And so I'm going to get some redstone. And the stuff you're looking for is if you type in redstone in your inventory, you get lots of different options. But I'm going to take this one, just the redstone. Looks like a little pile of dust. And when I click that, I'm going to put it in the very middle of my inventory. And the reason for that is because I want my inputs to sit on the left and my outputs to sit on the right, so we can visually see how this works. And then for inputs, I'm going to put something in like a button. And you can play around with this. Ask your kids what they think the inputs are in Minecraft. Input, process, as I keep doing that. Input would be a lever and also a pressure plate. So there would be 3 good examples. Let me place those down just now. So we're going to do button, then lever gap, lever, then lever gap, pressure plate. And if I press the button, nothing happens. If I pull the lever, toggle on and off, nothing happens. If I stand on the pressure plate, happens. That's okay, because now I'm going to go and get some outputs, and I'm going to put in a lamp, redstone lamp, a piston, and a door. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to count opposite the button, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then on the 6th I'm going to place the lamp, which means I can leave a gap and place the piston, which means I can leave a gap and place the door. And again, when I press the button, nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens. So what we need is the input, is the process, sorry. So we've got input, process, output. Input, process, oops, output, and input, process, output. Now if I press the button, the light comes on because we have redstone electrical circuitry. If I pull the lever, the piston goes up and down. So we have machinery. And if I stand on the pressure plate, the door opens. And so we can start to create different, I know, Cheryl, I do make it look easy. I've been doing it for 11 years, but trust me, even that little model, if you just practice, I'll give you a moment to take a screenshot of that model. Just grab a screenshot. That little model, once you've built it, just build it once and then play around with it. And then build it again and play around with it. And then what happens is you start to be like, all right, I know how that works. So for example, and I'll just take that off so you can get a good screenshot from above. Do take a screenshot or a photograph. Let me get rid of this sheet so he's not in your way. Get out of it. Right, okay. Let me there we go. Take a screenshot of that. And so what we can then do is we can start to, let me just take away the redstone that touches each of those. I'm then going to join it at the top. And then I'm going to put it to 1, just the light, which means the button and the lamp lever and the pressure plate all go to the same source. Or we can destroy this one and do that. And instead, it just means that the button and the lever and the pressure plate all go to the same one. And we could do the same with the door, of course. Alternatively, we could have those back in place and we could have those joined, which means that all three of these come from one source. Oh, I need to then pop it there. So you can play around with this model and sort of think to yourself, I know how to do that, once you've built the original model or the pressure plate. And then, of course, what we could also do is we could just have it all, let's just join it in the middle, not that that's important, but just out of neatness, we could just join it in the middle so that no matter which one we pressed, we always got a response. And so redstone allows us to then start to create things like, for example, and this is just a really quick example of a thing that we did in Ireland many years ago, but redstone up the hill to here. I'm then just going to build this out at the side and build it around like that. Then what we're going to do is, and just to show you what it's actually doing to work, just hide that. There we go. Just so that you wouldn't see it. Now what we're going to do is this one here, if you switch that on, you'll see that that light's on. I'm just doing this one so we can see, because when I'm pressing the lever, you can't see what's up there. So if I was to go dot, dot, dash, dash, dot, dot, we've suddenly got Morse code. Dot, 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 dash, dash, dot, dot, dot. I think that's it. I think it's dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dot is SOS, for example. Meanwhile, if you say this is what's going on, if you are the child here, you can see that. So you can see it going dot, dot, dash, 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 dot, 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 dash. So then you have another one. So there's another one built here. And your little lamp's at the top of it. And we're going to get it over there. And then we're going to have the redstone come down to the bottom. We're going to have our lamps already there and our lever. So you see that going dot, 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 dash, and we go dot, 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 dash, dash, dot. Meanwhile, another kid who's over here can only see yours, because we'll put them in a little box, and then another kid, and then another kid, and then another kid. And before you know it, you've got this big, long communication path only using Morse code. And we did that for the Irish, a school in Ireland, because they were studying a very distinctive piece of their history where you would have, basically the Irish tried to send Morse code to the Americans when they were under siege by the Brits, and they tried to send for help. And the Americans didn't receive it, and I think to this day there's still some controversy over whether or not it was received but it was the wrong message, or it wasn't received, or it was received but it was ignored. I can't remember exactly what the history is, but it's a really nice way of sort of considering, well, what if they got the wrong message? So you start off, I mean, I'm sure you've all done an exercise similar to this where you give the first kid a message, you tell them to pass it on, and by the time it gets 10 relay stations down, it's not the same message at all. And so it's just really nice, but it's using Morse code and light. And so that's just a really nice way of sort of saying, well, what's our narrative? Our narrative is to explore Irish history, particularly the Easter Rising of 1916. Yeah. But what we're going to do is we're going to do it through the lens of the communication method that they chose. Therefore, we're going to need an environment that looks like a town. So we're going to go save and exit, because we just need a building, that's all. So I'm going to go view library, biomes and worlds, featured worlds, and then we're going to go for starter town. Create that world. You're welcome. You're welcome. And then we're just going to go into this town. We're going to pick our building, and then we're going to start from there. So we can say that maybe we're going to build, they're stuck in this building and they're trying to get Morse code from this building to the other side of town. That's how we're going to do it. That's how we're going to do the lesson. So I'm going to finish there. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining this masterclass. Next time, we are all about code. We're going to be getting Code Builder up and running, and we're going to be doing everything from getting you started with code right through to loops, nested loops, and we're going to be looking at some biodiversity code, code for helping children to think about the balance of nature, the food chain, and biodiversity. See you next Monday at the same time. Thanks, everyone.